Welcome all of you for today's Ishopanishad session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Reading from the book Sri Ishopanishad by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Mantra 9. Andham tamah pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau vidyayam rataha. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Those who in, those who engage in the culture of messianic activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. We will continue to read from where we left yesterday. According to the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 42, and chapter 7, verse 15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vedavada Rata and Mayaya Apahrita Jnana. They may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men. Those who are Vedavada Rata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15, it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know the personality of Godhead, but these Vedavada Rata men are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fruitive results as the attainment of heaven. As stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portions of the necessities of life. The purpose of all Vedic literature is to awaken this God consciousness in the forgetful living being, and the same purpose is presented in various ways in the different scriptures of the world for the understanding of a foolish mankind. Thus, the ultimate purpose of all religions is to bring one back to Godhead. But the Vedavada Ratha people, instead of realizing that the purpose of the Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality of Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as the attainment of heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, the lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanations for laymen. The Vedavada Rathas give their own explanations of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of great teachers or acharyas. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic knowledge. Such Vedavada Rathas are especially condemned in this mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit words Vidyayam Rataha. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge or Vidya, and Rataha means those engaged. Vidyayam Rataha thus means those engaged in the study of the Vedas. The so called students of the Vedas are condemned herein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas on account of their disobeying the Acharyas. Such Vedavada Ratas search out meanings in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purposes. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of disciplic succession. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad. These Vedavada Ratha people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus, they progress into the darkest region of ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. The Mayaya Apahrita Jnana class of men are self made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and that there is no need of worshipping any other God. They will agree to worship an ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of Godhead. Such men, unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusory energy. If God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all powerful, but they do not consider that if he is all powerful, there is no possibility of his being overpowered by Maya. These self made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So we are discussing mantra 9 of Sri Ishopanishad, and yesterday we had a discussion of the translation and some important points from the mantra. This mantra says that those who engage in the cultivation of avidya, they enter into the darkest region of ignorance. They get degraded to lower species of life. And worse still are those who are engaged in the cultivation of so called Vidya. So, we discussed yesterday what is Vidya and what is Avidya. Vidya means knowledge that liberates, that knowledge which liberates us from material conception, from ignorance, from bodily based designations. That is called Vidya. And the Vedic literatures are a storehouse of this real Vidya. Veda means knowledge or Vidya. So one has to study the Vedic scriptures under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then one will actually come to the right understanding. Simply by being a Sanskrit scholar, being conversant with the rules of Sanskrit grammar, one may not be able to understand or decipher the real meanings of the mantras and shlokas mentioned in the Vedic scriptures. That is why it is said, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One can understand the Vedic knowledge only when one is guided by a bona fide Acharya who comes in the bona fide Parampara system. Yesterday we also saw the analogy of a cobra which is decorated with a jewel. A cobra which is decorated with jewel is more dangerous than a cobra which does not have a jewel. In the same way, a person who is decorated with his so called mundane education is more dangerous than a person who has no material education at all. A person who has no material education will not be unnecessarily proud. Such a person will not unnecessarily try to brainwash others, saying that material science is everything and you need not become God conscious. So, a brainless, materially educated person says that we should become atheists. He preaches atheism, thinking that because he is scientifically so advanced, there is no need to believe in God. So, therefore, a person who has no spiritual education but who is only proud of his so called atheistic material education is compared to a cobra which is decorated with a valuable jewel. Now, in today's part of the purport that we read, Srila Prabhupada talks about, quoting from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's own words, the phrase Vedavada Rataha. Vedavada Rata means one who professes himself to be a great scholar in Vedic knowledge, but who has not actually understood the real purpose of the Vedic knowledge. We see there are many so called scholars who say that they have studied the Vedas, but if you go to them and ask, what is the actual purpose of the Vedas? Such bewildered souls tell that the Vedas describe that we can attain higher degrees of material pleasure by entering into heavenly planets, Swarga Lokas. And there we can engage in higher degrees of pleasure by associating with beautiful women in the gardens of the heavens known as Nandana Kanana. And such Vedavada Rathas, they direct the innocent people to attain such heavenly pleasures by telling them that you should perform certain fruitive activities mentioned in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedic scriptures. So they recommend and profess different kinds of yajnas, different kinds of vratas, so that people can can accumulate this punya credits so that they can go to heavenly planets. But actually, such people, they may be great Vedic scholars, but they have actually not understood the real purpose of the Vedas. These people are attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas, as Krishna says in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschitaha vedavada rata partha nanyadastiti vadinaha. These people who are attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas, which promise heavenly pleasures, they think that the only goal of life is to increase our sense gratification. On the earthly planet, we are able to enjoy sense gratification to some degree, but when we go to the heavens, we can enjoy greater degrees of sense pleasure. So they say they are attracted to these kind of descriptions mentioned in the Vedas, and they profess that there is no other purpose of studying the Vedas than attaining heavenly sense gratificatory pleasures. Now, such people are condemned by Lord Krishna as Vedavada Rata. That means they are only namesake professors of Vedic knowledge. They have actually not understood the real purpose of the Vedas. Then, what is the real purpose of the Vedas? That Krishna himself says in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 15th shloka. Krishna says, Vedaischa sarvaihi ahameva vedyaha. The real purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Krishna. The real purpose of studying the Vedas is to know who we are, to know that we are not the body, we are spirit soul, to know that we have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. Only when we attain to our eternal loving relationship with Krishna, we can attain real happiness. This is the purpose of studying the Vedas. But the materialistic people, when they study the Vedas, they only pick up such cheap karma kanda knowledge and they become bewildered by such things. Now, the question may arise, these karma kandiya Vedic scholars, they are attracted to the karma kanda rituals in the Vedas. Then, in the first place, why are these karma kanda rituals described in the Vedas? Shouldn't the Vedas directly have described only the glories of devotional service to Krishna so that there is no room for people to get attracted to mundane material pleasures? Now, the answer to this question is Vedas are vast and Vedas are meant to cater to people of different consciousness and different degrees of mentalities. Not everybody in this material world are interested to directly render service to Krishna and surrender to Him. So, therefore, the Vedas give a gradual process of elevation from karma kanda to jnana kanda to upasana kanda and finally to the point of surrendering to Krishna and rendering pure devotional service to Krishna. So somebody who is materially motivated to attract the attention of such people, the Vedas uh, describe that yes, you are looking for material pleasures. Instead of looking for material pleasures in a atheistic manner, why don't you perform the rituals mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, the yajnas, so that you can accumulate karma, punya karma, and so that you can go to heavenly planets and engage in higher degrees of pleasure there. That means this knowledge of Vedas, the Karmakanda knowledge of the Vedas, is meant to channelize the human efforts towards religious activities, so that at least in the name of performing yajnas for sense gratification, gradually there is a chance that a person may get elevated to knowledge. So a person who engages in Karmakanda rituals for many lifetimes may enjoy higher degrees of material pleasure due to his accumulated punya karma. But if he becomes a little observant, he will start thinking for petty material pleasures which are temporary, which have a beginning and an end. Why should I waste my valuable efforts simply for performing these materialistic activities, the ritualistic activities? Is there a way that I can enjoy unending happiness? And I am the body currently, but the body has got limitations in enjoying, because old age makes me, even though I have desire to enjoy, when I become old, my body will not support my enjoyment. So, is there a way for seeking alternate happiness other than bodily happiness? A person will start thinking like this when he gradually becomes disappointed with the material results that he accrues through the karma kanda rituals. So then such a person is guided to the jnana kanda section of the Vedic scriptures. Jnana kanda means the Upanishads. In the Upanishad, there is the beginning of the transcendental knowledge. So in the Upanishads, there is a description about the body and the soul. There is a knowledge that each of us is not our body. We are spirit soul, and therefore we have to accumulate, or we have to cultivate spiritual knowledge to rise above the bodily miseries. And in this way, the Upanishads direct a seeker to cultivate spiritual knowledge. Now, when a person understands that spiritual knowledge is more important than simply performing rituals, that means he has actually understood some purpose, the real purpose behind the Vedic scriptures or Vedic descriptions. So, such a person stops being a karmi and starts becoming a jnani. He cultivates spiritual knowledge. He's not simply interested in accumulating punya and elevating to higher planets. And then again, when the punya is over, bank balance is over, he again comes down to the earthly planet. So he's fed up with this kind of a merry-go-round, going up, coming down. So he starts cultivating spiritual knowledge from the Upanishads. Now, further, when he is enlightened in spiritual knowledge, he is guided to the Upasana Kanda of the Vedic scriptures, where he realizes that there are personalities who are governing this material world. There are the Devatas who are all empowered ultimately by the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord is not an ordinary person. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Personality, and it is his wish, which is actually bringing about this entire creation. So let me engage in his upasana, let me engage in his worship, right? So, because the Jnana Kanda section of the Vedic scriptures are inadequate, because it does not tell the readers how to attain real unending ananda. Real unending ananda is possible only when we engage in loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So when a person comes to Upasana Kanda, initially he may approach the Supreme Lord with material motives, but since he is engaged nevertheless in the service of the Supreme Lord, he becomes purified. And gradually, when he comes in touch with a pure devotee spiritual master, by such an association, he engages in pure devotional service without material motives and thus becomes fully purified and fully satisfied because of his loving relationship with Krishna. So, in this way, the Vedic scriptures have a multi life program to guide the conditioned souls from their fruitive mentality ultimately to the point of perfect surrender and rendering of pure devotional service to Krishna. So, all this can be understood only when we approach a bona fide spiritual master. But if we simply approach a so called Vedic scholar, Vedavada Rata, he may not have the understanding of the complete picture and the purpose of the Vedic scriptures. So, such a Vedavada Rata, he himself becomes fascinated with the descriptions of the heavenly pleasures given in the Karma Kanda, and he also directs the others uh, who also to perform such ritualistic activities. And thus, such a person, he bewilders, he misguides common people. So there are many people who say that, oh, if you want a good wife, you worship goddess Uma, Mother Parvati. Or if you want a good husband, you worship Lord Shiva. So like this, they go ahead and guide people. That means they are guiding people for some temporary results. Such people are actually not very intelligent themselves. And those people who worship the devatas for temporary material pleasures are also condemned in the Bhagavad Gita. So they are alpamedhasaha. They are described as less intelligent people. Why? Because they take up so much hardships, they follow so much disciplinary rituals and vows simply to get some temporary material benefits. But if they engage the same efforts and same determination under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master to render service to Krishna, they will actually become completely purified. The difference between approaching the Devatas and approaching Krishna is this. When we approach a Devata, the Devata may no doubt satisfy our material desires if our karma permits, but we cannot make further spiritual progress from there on. A Devata can only satisfy our material benefits, material hankerings. But what about the hankering of the soul, which is seeking eternity, which is seeking real knowledge and ultimate ananda? That cannot be satisfied by any Devata worship. So, Devata worship, more or less, is a material transaction between the worshipper and the worshipped. Once the ritual is over and once the Devata awards the material benefits for the worshipper, there ends the transaction. There is no further benefit thereon. Whereas when one approaches the Supreme Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu, even though one may approach the Lord for material rewards, but since he is touching the all supreme spiritual personality, Krishna, he gradually becomes purified. The classic example for this is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, that the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva was a small boy, a 5-year-old boy. He was insulted by his stepmother. So therefore he went to the forest to do tapasya, and his desire was to please Narayana and to gain a higher position greater than his father, his grandfather, and great grandfather. Dhruva's father was Uttanapada Maharaj, his father was Swayambhuva Manu, and his father was Lord Brahma. So Dhruva Maharaj's great grandfather was Lord Brahma. So he said, my stepmother did not allow me to sit on my father's throne. Now I want to sit in a position much, much greater than Lord Brahma. For this, Lord Vishnu will definitely satisfy my desire. So, with this kind of a material benefit in mind, Dhruva Maharaj started performing tapasya in the forest of Madhuvana, one of the 12 forests in Vrindavan. But the wonderful turning point that happened in his life was he got the guidance and mercy of a bona fide spiritual master, pure devotee, Narad Muni. So Narad Muni accepted him as his disciple and gave him the mantra to chant the holy name of the Lord. And he also told him how to exactly worship the Supreme Lord. So, with great determination, according to the instructions of his spiritual master Narad Muni, Dhruva Maharaj performed tapasya in the forest, chanting the holy names of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. And within 6 months, he was able to see the Lord face to face. This was a great achievement indeed, because even great yogis, great tapasvis, even though they perform so much tapasya, they may not be able to see the Lord face to face. Now, the secret of Dhruva Maharaja's success was he was guided by a bona fide spiritual master, Narad Muni. And also, he used to worship the Lord every day with tulasi leaves in the holy place of Madhuvana. So, all these factors together contributed for the success of Dhruva Maharaj. Now, 6 months, he was able to see the Lord face to face. By the time he saw the Lord, by that time, the severe austerities and the chanting of the holy names had completely transformed his consciousness. When the Lord asked him, Dhruva, tell me what do you want? Now Dhruva said, my dear Lord, I have achieved you. What else is there for me to achieve? I don't want any material benediction. Swamin kritarthosmi varam na yache. I don't want any vara. I don't want any material benediction because I have attained you, who are so difficult to be seen even by great devatas and great munis. In fact, he gave a comparison. He said, I was actually so foolish that I was looking for broken pieces of glass, but I have attained the greatest jewel. One who has got the greatest jewel, the most valuable jewel, will he be ever attracted to broken pieces of glass again? Never. I have found you. Oh Lord, I have achieved you. Please give me the intelligence that I always engage in your loving devotional service. I don't want anything else. So, but the Lord was so pleased with his attitude. The Lord said, definitely, I will give you my pure devotional service. At the end of this life, you will also come back to me to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, and engage in my eternal loving service there. But as long as you are here in the material world, you will rule this planet for 36,000 years. And after that, I am giving you a separate loka, a separate planet for yourself called the Dhruva Loka, which is not destroyed even during the time of annihilation. It is as good as the spiritual world, and it is worshipped by all the residents of the higher planets within this material world. I am giving you such a loka. So you see, when you approach Krishna, what happens? Not only your material desires are completely satisfied, but you will also attain the intelligence that this material things are all useless and temporary. I should simply engage in devotional service to the Lord, and that will give me real perfection. So, this is the difference between approaching the Devatas for material rewards and approaching the Supreme Lord for material desires. That is why the Bhagavatam says, Akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Which means whether a person has no material desires or whether he has all kinds of material desires or a person who has desire for attaining liberation, in whatever state of being, whatever desire a person may have, in all situations, it is best for him to actually engage in intense devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Because gradually such a person will become purified and he will attain the supreme perfection. Now, this secret is known only to a bona fide spiritual master who comes in the parampara system, not to a mere Vedic scholar who professes that he has understood the Vedic knowledge, but he's simply engaged in Vedic rituals to attain heavenly pleasures. Therefore, the Vedas are no doubt the ultimate storehouse of knowledge, but to decode the Vedic knowledge and to get real benefit from the Vedic knowledge, one must approach a bona fide acharya who is coming in the bona fide parampara system. That is the point. So in the Mundaka Upanishad also it is said, Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Evabhigache Samitpani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtham. So Mundaka Upanishad is saying, if at all you want to attain perfection of Vedic knowledge, you must approach a bona fide spiritual master. It is not optional, it is mandatory. Sagurum eva abhigachet. Abhigachet means it is mandatory, it is not optional. So this is the point. So if we have to save ourselves from wrong interpretation of foolish scholars, if we have to save ourselves from becoming a follower of a self styled God man who has no proper understanding of the Vedic scriptures, then we must approach a bona fide spiritual master. And we are all lucky and fortunate that such a bona fide spiritual master has indeed entered each one of our lives, and that is Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is a bona fide spiritual master who comes in the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. He is a 32nd Acharya and he traveled all over the world to preach this pure Krishna conscious message to everybody, the fallen souls of the Kali Yuga. He elevated them not only when he was physically present, even after his physical absence, departure, even today, Prabhupada, through his organization, through his institution, ISKCON, through his disciples, through his books, through his movement, through his pure Vani, he is continuing to transform thousands and thousands of seekers and souls every day, even today. So we are very fortunate to study the Ishopanishad under the guidance of such a bona fide spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, whoever is reading my books is my disciple. So we are very fortunate. We should continue to study Srila Prabhupada's books and become spiritually intelligent and educated, and thus march towards attaining the ultimate goal of human life, which is to engage in unmotivated, pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Krishna. We will stop here. We will continue in tomorrow's session. In a short while, we will be having the Bhagavad Gita chanting session. Shri Ishopanishad ki jai, Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Please stay online for the Gita recitation.